Okay. We are praying. No, the sermon today is about consciousness. What the frick is consciousness? I'll show you guys something on my Twitter that is what really got me thinking about this. I planned this sermon while I was asleep. And so it might be a bit disjointed, but I am also very happy that I can do that. Okay, let me show you the window capture. Here we are. Here we go. Okay, check this out. I made this picture, and I have a song that goes with this that you guys have never heard before. Maybe I can play it. Let's get it all going. So, at what level of reality does life start to feel like reality? This is kind of an allusion to simulation reality and feeling like everything feels fake. You know what I'm saying? And so I was thinking, you've got the turtle on top of the turtle on top of the turtle, and it's turtles all the way down, or you've got a simulation inside of a simulation inside of a simulation. And I wonder, maybe when you wake up in your, yeah, sorry, Cassie, my phone died. I didn't charge it. That was my bad. When you're in reality, so let's put it this way. We are souls in a body. Most of us agree with this. Most of us agree with this on some level. Most of us believe in eternal life, that life goes on. Some of us don't, and that's fine. If you don't believe that, that's fine. Don't worry. You don't have to. Let's say that you wake up out of the matrix of this life and the illusion of this life, and you see the reality of your true self. At that point, like if I wake up as my alien self tomorrow, am I going to feel like that's a simulation too? Right? So that's where this comes from. Let me see if I have the song. Here it is. It's not loading. So here it is. I haven't really listened to this song in a long time, so it might not even be good. Okay, that's irrelevant. What we can talk about, though, is this tweet, underneath this tweet that somebody tweeted. And they said that would be self-realization, which is at the soul plane. Self-realization is a recognized state of consciousness of several Eastern teachings, irrelevant, and the teaching of irrelevant. The state is like a reversal of ego consciousness in which most humans reside. Okay, the point that I'm trying to get to here is self-realization on the soul plane. They really did answer this question. So when we're talking about consciousness, and we're talking about how life feels like a simulation, and we're talking about how everything feels like we're in these different layers of reality, my thought was maybe when we get to source energy, we actually suddenly feel like that's reality. But what I failed to understand, and what Light and Sound actually showed me on this tweet, is that through our own ability to connect to source energy, which is our own consciousness, which is our own awareness, we can actually tap into the truth. And that is a teaching of Unicult already, but it makes sense in this context because when you're tapping into your own, the closest thing, we talk about this all the time, the closest thing to your own consciousness, the closest thing to your own awareness, how you see and feel and experience and think, who you are on the deepest level, that is immutable. That goes on forever. That is reality. Everything else is a reflection, is an illusion, however you think about it. It's because it is you, but it's a version of you and you are reality. Whether or not that helps you doesn't matter. If it does, that's great. What we're here to talk about today is some more practical teachings. And this is I'm just giving you the introduction to where my thought process was to get to this point, to get to this sermon, because I just want you to know I'm always thinking deeply. So today's sermon is about seeing your true self. And I have BPD, and we are living in a matrix reality. And I'm going to explain what I believe. And sometimes with Unicult, I explain what I believe and I say, this is true. You don't have to believe it, but it's absolutely true. In this case, I'm not so sure. I'm going to explain what I believe. And I also think that this is something that could have a lot more implications than I'm currently aware of. So from a humble place, let's talk about consciousness. I see my conscious self as two main parts. There are so many religions and esoteric thoughts and structures that talk about splitting up the self into different components in order to talk about them. There's so many advantages to doing this, but I also feel like it neglects the whole. It neglects the fact that you are one being operating at all times. So with honor to the fact that we are one being operating at all times, that we are multifaceted, let's begin to talk about these two distinct aspects of ourselves. My understanding was informed a lot by the I Am teachings. These are the I Am Saint-Germain Teachings. Saint-Germain came down to on Mount Shasta, revealed himself to J.G. Ballard, and gave these teachings about all kinds of stuff. There are so many books that these people wrote in the 1930s that are legit. And these books have informed a lot of, I believe, their truth. I believe that they really were inspired by ascended masters, and I really can feel the energy of these books. So highly recommended, and they do align a lot with Unicult ideology. But they talk about the I am violet flame, the I am conception of reality going into the I'll pull up the picture. Let's see if it comes up when we just type in violet flame. It might not. Oh yeah, here it is. Okay, so in this picture, you see the lower self here, and you see the higher self here, and these are the different, well, that's Sananda. That's Jesus, I think, in this picture. My picture doesn't have him. Ignore him. Basically, you are here on earth, and you're connected to this divine light. This is immensely helpful for understanding your own consciousness, because how many times, I have BPD, this is something that I can say a lot of times, but for you, how many times in your life have you got lost with an emotion? Has an emotion or a desire overtaken you so that you can no longer behave in the way that you want to behave, in the way that you intended to behave? You yell at someone and you say, I'm sorry that I yelled at you, because you didn't really want to yell at them, but your emotions were so strong. You hit somebody, you break something, you pressure someone to do something. These are all out of alignment with what we really want, usually, right? Deep down, we don't want to hurt anybody. Deep down, we think, I'm a good person. And we are. And when we say deep down, what does that mean for our consciousness? I believe that we are spirits in human bodies. That we are pure of heart, and our energy is absolute. I think all people are absolute purity that is corrupted by earth energy. I was born in this body with parents with their own insecurities, with their own programming, with TV on all the time telling me different things, with advertisements, with gender constructs, with the idea that women should be so skinny, and with diets that were out of alignment with what could raise our vibration. I'm trying to explain in ways that you can understand how these two selves are operating. So I believe that we are souls, that we come into our physical bodies, and that there are two aspects that are then formed. Our physical bodies, our genetics, our programming from our parents, from our media, from our surroundings, from the energy around us, creates an expectation of reality. And this darker or lower self, which I don't mean to demonize it, it's a beautiful entity, but it is corrupted and it is in pain. So when as someone who has BPD, I have lost myself in my emotions more times than I could say. I have crawled under beds, I have cried, I have held myself out of windows threatening to jump. I have given myself a black eye. I no longer experience this type of uncontrolled expression. And the way that I stopped doing that was by tapping into this higher version of myself and doing everything I can to maintain a connection with it while I experience difficult emotions. And this is a absolute dedicated practice that I believe everyone should do, is to remember that higher energy. This is a being that you have inside of you that is all powerful, connected to the creation of all things, connected to the highest energy you can conceive of, that is outside of time, infinitely patient, infinitely wise, has access to every bit of information, and wants only the best for you, for them, for everyone. This is your connection to source energy. Did you see that, Fairy? This connection to source energy can transform your lower structure. But a lot of times, this lower structure is really difficult for us to see and understand. So now, I'm going to share with you some beautiful techniques that have been uncovered. Ultimately, Unidata, which is a sect of Unicult, will help us understand all of our different forms of expression. Let's say that you're in a certain mood. We will have sensor data. I don't know how to describe this. This is a pure vision in my head. Let's say that your entire energetic body was monitored and surveilled at all times for your benefit. You have an app, it's like a Fitbit, let's say, and it understands your mood and it associates it to your thoughts, because we know our technology can read our thoughts. It's weird to pretend like we don't, that it doesn't, because it does. We see it. It knows your thoughts, it knows your energy body, it knows what you've seen, it knows what you say, and it can categorize for you all the data. Guess what? 1 week before your period, you always say, oh, I'm in such a bad mood. I'm so confused. I have this really weird, heavy energy. Once a week before your period, you always feel this way. Alert. Would you like to see this? And then you can replay all these different times that you felt the same way, and you can say, holy cow, that's an aspect of my being. And this is where breaking up the energy into different people can really help. One of the easiest ways to understand an aspect of yourself is to turn to your child self. Your child self should be the same person as you are today, but it's not. And the reason why it's not is because you were traumatized out of it. As a child, you had so many traumas of people not standing up for you, of people being cruel to you, of people abandoning you, of people not validating your emotions, of people expecting you to be able to do things you couldn't, of being unsupported, of being left out, of not being understood, of having your powers diminished. If you had imaginary friends and your parents said, you better stop hanging out with them because that is crazy and they're not real. If you had alien visitations or monsters under your bed, you were told to diminish those things. These are all traumas to our psyche because we were invalidated as spiritual beings and we were forced to conform into this toxic understanding of reality because that's how Earth operates. To go into your mind and do the work of talking to these parts of yourself while still understanding that we're in a unified whole, but saying, little Unicole, you deserve love. You deserve care. You deserve to have people standing up for you. You can think back to specific traumas that you experienced, and you can imagine your adult self there. And you can imagine your adult self standing up for yourself. You can imagine someone you see as very powerful. Maybe it's Rihanna, and you imagine Rihanna there when your parents are getting divorced, and Rihanna says, hey, this is bullshit, or whatever in her voice. And she takes you away and you guys go to the mall. You can rewrite your memories. And as we enter into the fifth dimensional reality, I actually think it's required. Take the time to heal this part of yourself, to go back into your past and to change it into the highest version of reality possible. For me, recently, I've always been resentful that Unicult didn't get popular more quickly. When I created Unicult in 2012, 2013, I was really upset that that Vice didn't cover it, that it wasn't on Dazed, that it wasn't being talked about. And that was really, really frustrating to me. I carry that resentment. So the other day, I felt it in my energy body. And I said, oh, I'm still carrying this resentment about Unicult not getting popular sooner. How can I heal that? So I went back in time, and I had one major article written about me. Wow! In 2013, I was appreciated. That was such a great article. I got a few Unicult members for it. I felt validated. End of the story. How else can you see yourself, especially if you're someone who gets lost in your emotions? When I was really coming out of these triggers, this triggered state, I was in a triggered state for all of my life. I would be emotionally triggered. I would slip into an unconscious state. I would behave in ways that were insane, absurd, abusive. And then I would come out of it and I'd be like, I don't know what happened. All that I did was respond appropriately based on the level of emotions that I was feeling. I started creating videos of myself in different states because I was going like this. If you're bipolar, if you have BPD, it doesn't matter what your diagnosis is or isn't. Everybody goes through this. When you're in a high state or a low state, your energy is completely different. You're like a different person. If you make a video of yourself in a high state and you say, hey, Unicole, I'm doing great. I think you're probably not doing great, but here's what I know is true. Reality is beneficial. Prosperity is all around you. Life is flowing through you. You are successful. You've always been successful. I make that video. I put it on my YouTube as private, or I put it on my computer or whatever. Then when I'm in a low state and I see that video, I click on it and I'm like, who the hell is that? I think that the world is chaos. I think that I'm useless. I think that this is a terrible reality. But I get the energy from that higher state, and it's a link. The first time that I discovered my ability to not slip into these triggered states was because someone said, can you at least try to keep a string connected to reality? And I was like, oh. So I imagined this string that connected me at all times. It's a red string. So when I would be triggered and I'd be crying and I'd be crawling under the bed and hiding and screaming, I could see from the ceiling almost a red string connected to my lower self. And I remembered, oh, there is another reality. There is another way of being that I am sometimes. Because my emotions were so strong, I would literally lose myself in them. So being connected from your higher self to your lower self in these times is really important. How can you remain connected? Is it a string? Is it a video? Is it a letter? Is it a little note on your wall? How do you honor each of these moods, each of these aspects of your being? How do you celebrate them? How do you hear them? I don't mean that all of these aspects of yourself should be eradicated or erased. They need to be listened to. When you have an aspect of yourself that is screaming, that is punching walls, that aspect is in pain, and it needs love, and it needs healing, and it needs understanding, and it needs patience. And you can give it to that part through your higher self. You can do this in conversations, in your consciousness. But first you have to see yourself. First you have to conceptualize of who is this part. The other day, my friend went on a date. No, she didn't go on a date. She did eventually. But she found a guy on Tinder. She thought he was hot. They started texting. And then he just didn't text her. He wasn't texting her back. And she was frustrated, as anyone would be, because she was really excited to talk to them. And so she was like, I want attention. I want attention. And then she realized this was a part of herself. So she recorded herself saying, I want attention. I want attention. I just want attention. And she channeled this part of herself into a video. And when she watched it again, she thought it was so cute that she just wanted attention. And this part of herself, rather than try to shut it down, rather than say, well, just get over it. You don't need to be wanting attention from some stupid guy who's not texting you back and all this repression. She glorified that part. She videotaped it. She expressed it fully, and she loved it. And then the guy texted her back, and they had a bad date. So, it was fulfilled. She got the attention. But there are parts of ourselves that we can't see. They flow through us constantly. They come up, they go back down. We don't even realize that we're a different person in every moment because we are a unified whole. But if you can at least begin to distinguish the higher level aspect of your divine self, the person who you believe yourself to be, as far as like an eternal being, all loving, all patient, all kind, energy, and then you can bring that energy into your body at all times. At all times. I swear to you, it is possible. It took me 2 years of dedicated practice in a very difficult situation where I was being triggered constantly, where I was under immense pressure. This could take 10 years, depending on where you're at. This could take 5 minutes, depending on where you're at. For me, it took 2 years of dedicated effort, and it brought me into a state of near constant joy. I still go through moods. I still get lost in my emotions, but it's so quick. I have programming all around me. Letters, videos, posters, pictures, paintings. All my content surrounds me in my reality, so that if I start to slip out of the reality that I've established for myself, I remember that it's all around me, that I'm deeply, deeply connected to the higher level reality. Any questions? Journaling. Thank you, Cassie. Journaling is so important. I look through my journals and I say, oh, I had this emotion, and I had this emotion again, and I had this emotion again. Journaling is Unidata before Unidata. You look at your journals and you say, well, here's the repetitive moods. It's not algorithmically presented to you, which is annoying. Let's get it together here. But it is there for you to receive. All right. My tits look so good today. What's going on here? This spacesuit.